Welcome back. Are you curious about how we plan our trips? Are you curious about how to get started, or are you just transitioning into a new season of life and you want to hear tips and tricks that other people use to make sure that their family has great experiences in our national parks and our travels? I'm here to share with you what we do. Don't take it for gospel, but you can stay tuned and listen a little. Our starting place for travel and making travel decisions is with our goal list. Now, this is not something that I grew up having or knowing anything about. And in fact, it took until our eldest was maybe 8 years old before we even established a goal list. However, as I've spoken about many times before, we love listening to the podcast, The RV Atlas. And it used to be called the RV Family Travel Atlas. And you don't have to be an RVer to love it. The people are great. And they talk a lot about family travel. And one thing that we learned from there that I've spoken about and I write about in our blog is the idea of the family bucket list and counting down the number of summers, the number of travel seasons you have left with your children. While your kids are young, it feels like your time is infinite. You can go anywhere. You have plenty of time to share with them all of the wonderful things that you want to share with them. But as they start to get older, you realize, wait, I only have 4 more summer vacations to take my child on. And of course, some of your destinations will be destinations that you want to visit only in certain times of the year. So if it's a summer destination for you, you only have a finite number of years with your children to enjoy summer vacations before they have the option of leaving your home as adults. Maybe. That's another conversation. However, we set our goals, okay? And we know, like with our family right now, our son is next year, he'll start his freshman year of high school. Our minds are blown. My heart is partially broken at this point, but we have 4-ish more summers with him, and he's going to have to start working. So that's even going to limit our time with him. So we are starting to be more and more aware of the urgency to spend time with him abroad or at our parks in the special places that we want to share with him. Time is ticking. We've got to get there. The time is limited. So to be aware of your time limitations, how much time do you have to achieve this goal, and what are your goals? For example, one of my big trip goals that I want to take my kids on, that strangely we have not done this before, but I want to take them up through Michigan and Wisconsin. Now, you know, we've been to just about all of the national parks. So of course we have been to both of those places when we went up to visit Isle Royale National Park, which is a story in and of itself. However, we missed so many different places. Our eyes, our focus were so set on the goal of arriving at this national park that we really didn't have the time or the space, or at that point in that trip, the energy to really appreciate and enjoy all of the other wonderful places around there. I want to take them to Mackinac Island. I want to take them to Sleeping Bear Dunes. I want to take them to Picture Rock and to down into Wisconsin to Door County. That looks very charming. I'd like to see that area too. So that is one of the goal examples that we have on our list. Another big goal is Washington, D.C. We believe that just it is a duty of ours as parents. We feel very patriotic, and we want to bring our children to Washington, D.C. if given that opportunity. And that's an opportunity that we're in a position that we can create. So taking our kids to Washington, D.C. is big on our goal list. That was not one of the national parks, like the actual outdoor sort of recreation type parks. So that wasn't something that was on our radar so much years ago when we were adventuring more exclusively to the national parks. However, our children are older now. They're at the point where they can better appreciate and understand the magnitude of what they're seeing in Washington, D.C. So we feel an urgent pressure to get them to Washington, D.C. and to spend time exploring there. We have other travel goals as well. They have a grandmother who has passed away, but she grew up in Scotland, and they've been to Scotland a couple of times, and they feel very connected, so that's another place that we'll take them. And then they each have a country that they'd like to explore, and so those are on our list as well. We also have other places we like to go, we like to explore. My son has been to Banff once, but he loved it, and we didn't have a lot of time there. Actually, the weather wasn't great when we were there, so he wants to go back to Banff. We just have a lot of places that we want to explore, and although our list is narrowing in terms of our priority places that we want to take our children before they leave the house, we do have our goal list, and we try to match it up with our time frame. How much time do we have to achieve these goals, and each goal has some seasonality to it in terms of even the year. So the first tip is to set your goals and understand your time frame. So as I mentioned, you've got to address seasons. So when we are looking to plan a spring break trip or a winter trip or summer, whenever it is, we do take into consideration the season. And most places there are, better times of the year to visit. That depends on what experience you want. But if we want to hike, then we're probably not going to go to the mountains when it is covered with snow, because then we would be snowshoeing. It would be a very different experience. So which trip can we take in this upcoming season? So spring break is always a huge challenge for us, trying to come up with the right place because weather is such a wild card there. So spring break could be a great time for us to do our Washington, D.C. trip, because we would be in a lot of museums and monuments, and it's not so weather dependent to enjoy our experience. So the season of the year will also help us determine which travel goal we want to accomplish or what our destination might be. A third thing that we like to consider when planning our family travel is novelty. It's novelty. Have we been there before? Do we love it? We've gone for many years, and my whole life I've grown up going to Estes Park and Allen's Park. It's a comfort place for me. I can go there multiple times a year, and I will be happy to be there every single time. It's just a place that will always bring me joy and comfort, and I hope that if you like to travel, which I would assume that you do if you're watching this, that you might find that comfort place for you as well. Big Bend is that way for my husband too, and we all end up there a lot. Sometimes we look for novel places, a fresh experience. Sometimes we don't want to go to the same places, we want to branch out, and of course that connects back to our goal list. So the last 3 years, we have ended up going to Moab over spring break. I think it's 3 years. No, it's 2 years, and then we had 1 year where we went to Smoky Mountains before then, and then I think the year before that we were in Moab. I don't know. We're in Moab a whole lot during spring break. It's a weather thing. But we've done that now a lot of times, and now when we look at spring break for next year, we want something fresh. We love Moab, and I'm going to talk about our experience in another video, but we love Moab. But we're looking for some sense of novelty. We want to explore and adventure, and those are the emotions that really drive a lot of our travel. It's not necessarily to relax and kick back and zone out. It is an adventure style of travel often. So we are going to look for a novel experience. So that is usually our third priority or consideration when we are planning a family trip. Do we want a novel experience? Do we want to see something new? Or are we looking for our comfort place? The fourth thing that we consider when we're planning our family trips is diversity of experience. This gets more important, I believe, or as our experience goes, as your kids get older. Kids want to be entertained. Of course, we live in this culture where we have all of this media and there's so much going on all of the time. So we're used to a lot of stimulation. It is very hard to step away from that and for that not to be a truth in our lives at this point. So we are used to having a lot of interests sort of pandered to. When we go on a trip, we often like to go, as you know, to the national parks. And within the park, we like to hike. We like to do a lot of outdoor activities. However, for kids, especially as they get older, that can start to feel redundant, especially if it's a place we've visited before, or if it is scenery we've visited before. If we are not goal focused, if we've already done the Junior Ranger program at that park, there's not a Junior Ranger goal that drives that experience anymore. And then what is next, right? We've got to find a way to bring fun and bring joy. So we do always have our kids hike with us. That's just part of what we do as a family when we're out and about. It could be whatever it is, however you all enjoy your recreation in the national parks. That may be part of it. But we want to make sure that the whole family has a fantastic time on their national parks journey and walks away still having positive feelings towards that park and not feeling like that park is some sort of cage that their parents become obsessed with and that they are not able to enjoy other activities because they are relegated to national parks alone, which can be hard in our family. So we do look for diversity of experience. We throw everybody a bone. Everybody gets to do something fun that they want to do. So that could be looking at the gateway towns outside of the parks. And some of these gateway towns have a lot of fun experiences, a million different options. Look at Gatlinburg. Gatlinburg is the Vegas of the East, right? You can do anything you want. The kids could go in and do a major hike during the day, and then the whole family can leave and go to Dollywood and get their theme park experience going. We could also leave the park. We can have great food experiences or theatrical experiences. All of that's available for us in Gatlinburg. Frankly, this makes Gatlinburg pretty attractive to those of us that have teenagers and preteens and kids that are starting to not be quite as into the hiking experience as they used to be. It's harder to buy them off as they get older. The bribery, it's harder. So finding a place that has other experiences for people to enjoy. Another thing that you can consider, if it is not a gateway town that you're looking at, you can go places that have other activities going on. For example, when we went to Saguaro National Park a couple years ago, we were in Tucson. However, just a couple of hours, I think it was like 2 hours away, there was spring training for, I think the Cubs were doing spring training. I don't know. Somebody was doing spring training. There was some sort of baseball situation going on up near Scottsdale or something. I didn't go, but my husband and my son did go. They're watching a game right now, you might hear. My husband and my son did head north a couple hours to enjoy a baseball game during this trip. So we hiked, we learned, we studied the visitor center. They went out to a baseball game. We stay. Another way that you can diversify your experience is where you stay, of course. So during that trip, my daughter is super into swimming. She wants a pool wherever we go. So her diversity of experience was to go swimming. We had to make sure that there was a pool, it was going to be open, it was going to be kid friendly, and she could play all day and live her best life on our vacation outside the national park. What are some other things? Oh, other ideas for diversity of experience. On our way back from our recent Moab trip, we actually stopped at a couple of other national parks because, you know, I like to visit, I like to see what's new. we stopped at White Sands. Well, after our time in Moab, which was kind of wild and unusual because it actually rained a good portion of the time, and then we were in a lot of snowstorms. Very weird this year. But on our way back, we stopped at White Sands. What's great about White Sands is even though it's still a national park, it brought a diversity of experience to our trip. The kids got these little saucer sled things, and they played for hours on those sand dunes. They loved it, had a big time. We had to drag them out after hours so that we could make our next stop. So that was great. So sometimes it's not even leaving the national park system that creates a lot of fun or different activities. It's just seeing what is in your proximity, what is on your way there, what is on your way back, or what is in the surrounding area that you can see that would be a new-ish experience or something different to do. Another thing that you can do to create diversity of experience, even without dealing with the towns, the gateway towns outside of the parks, is actually do different things than you normally do in the parks. So again, we hike. Hiking is free, which I love so much, and we get a lot of exercise. I feel better about myself afterwards. So we do a lot of hiking, but sometimes, especially as the kids are getting older, they don't want to just hike, so we might book a rafting trip, or if we go to Yellowstone, which we are, spoiler alert, we are going to Yellowstone this summer, and one thing that we're going to do in Yellowstone is to do one of those wildlife safaris. We can go view a lot of different wildlife. That's something different than we normally do in that park. Other ideas to do within the parks are to do some rock climbing. So this is something my son has really enjoyed. I think when we went to Joshua Tree and then also in Yosemite, and I feel like some other parks that escape me right now, we have gotten a private guide for a couple of hours and taken him on a rock climbing adventure. He loves to do it. It helps him still maintain joy and a positive connection to the park. Did it require a little bit more investment? Yes. Can some of these things get very cost prohibitive? Absolutely. But maybe choosing one thing that you can do with your family, or your children choosing one thing that they would like to do that feels adventurous and a lot of fun surrounding your national park trip, can really help them have a fantastic time on your trip. To me, when we take our kids to the national parks, it's not just about the learning. It may have started as just about learning. However, now I want them to develop a love and a connection to these parks. So in order to do that, it's so important to me that our children walk away from these trips feeling a positive connection to the park, having had a positive experience, whether that's something I had to spend an extra $100 for or not. So consider that. Also consider your budget and what sort of experiences you can afford to include to diversify your trip and make sure everybody has a fantastic time, because they all can. And that is the fantastic thing about our national parks. The last thing that I ever deal with when planning a national park trip with the family are the details. I don't like the details. The details are figuring out our route, figuring out our packing list. The details are spending the money. The details are when the credit card comes out and you've got to start your charging process. The details are when I decide between the hotel and the campground, when I'm deciding what kind of experience. We've identified where we're going and the activities in the area, and that's going to meet our needs and everybody can have a great trip here. The details is where I decide what's going to facilitate that. Are we going to drive? Are we going to fly? Etc. So that's where I make those choices. I don't like dealing with that, as I keep mentioning. However, what I have learned over the past couple of years, and it's taken many, many, many times of making this mistake to get it through my thick, stubborn head, is that you need to deal with these details ahead of time. Not the night before, not the week before. This last trip that we went on, I delayed and delayed and procrastinated and didn't make the hotel reservations until the last minute. Any of them. We had a spot at our final destination, but all of the stops along the way there and the way back, I didn't have any reservations anywhere. And I thought, well, I'm sure I can find a hotel somewhere. And I did. But over the week leading up to our departure, prices pretty much doubled at all of these hotels. And even a bigger deal that a lot of people are not aware of, and I have not heard anybody talking about this, are the scarcity of hotel rooms for families. We had a huge struggle, and we've actually had this struggle for a couple of years now. But it is very hard to find those hotel rooms that have the 2 queen beds. So the king bed is not so comfortable when we have a family of 4, where there are 2 female and 2 male. We want a 2 queen bed hotel room, and that has been very difficult to find. In my experience, those are the first hotel rooms that get booked up. And then when we're left with maybe 1 king bed and maybe a pull-out couch, it is far less comfortable. There is far more arguing, and there is far less sleep. So, committing to those details, make those reservations early. At least you will be able to sleep in the arrangement that is most comfortable for your family. Do not wait till the last minute on the hotels if you have a big family, or if you need multiple beds, especially. So that's how we plan our trip. We look at our goals, we check out the season we need to be traveling, we think about, do we want a new experience or do we need a comfort experience? We think about the diversity of experiences that a location can offer us, and then we work out the details. And the details are usually delayed till the end, and I usually regret that big time. Don't make that mistake that I make every year. So I hope that you will set your goal list and you will start seeing what you want to do in what season, and I hope to hear about it. If you have any other ways that you plan or tips or suggestions on planning a family vacation that is sort of like a big picture tip, go ahead and put that down below. Budgeting is, of course, understood to be included in here to understand your budget. If you have other tips, drop it down below. Let's talk about it. I want to hear. I'm still learning. Maybe by the time my kids leave the house, I'll be an expert. I don't know about that. I don't know. Anyway, y'all have a fantastic day, and thanks for spending this time with me. Please like and subscribe. I'll see you later.